There's a massive spike in tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and India-Afghanistan relations have steadily improved in the recent past. In fact, Indian embassy has reopened in Kabul. Afghanistan, of course, is seeking much more assistance from India. What is the future of India-Afghanistan relationship? Remember, right from our childhood and for generations, we've heard of the Kabuli Wala, civilizational ties between the two countries and the people. But is this just about Pakistan and countering Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, or is there a far more deeper effort that's being made both by India and by Afghanistan? Joining us on the Chakravyuh podcast is someone who understands the region, the people, and the subject very intimately. I want to introduce Ambassador Vivek Kajju, former ambassador to Afghanistan, someone who dealt with Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iran as a joint secretary, was there. I must also tell our viewers, Ambassador Kajju was in Kandahar when IC-814 happened and when Indians were released and brought back. I must also tell you, he's someone late Pakistani military dictator Pervez Musharraf blamed for the Agra summit. And I want to, during the course of this conversation, try and understand why you were a joint secretary at that point of time, and we were all covering the Agra summit in Agra, but Musharraf seemed to have singled you out. We'll have that conversation, sir. But if we were to begin by talking about India-Afghanistan relationship and the recent visit of Amir Khan Muttaqi, the Taliban foreign minister, to India, how would you view that, sir?
I think it was a path-breaking visit. It has re-established our ties fully with the effective rulers of Afghanistan, which is now the Taliban. The Taliban has no real opposition, either within the country or outside. And it was time that we stepped up the relationship from the technical mission that we had to a regular diplomatic mission.
You've been recommending it for a very long time. It's happened now in 2025, but you've been recommending it for close to a decade now.
Well, I have an interest in Afghanistan, and I was following events in Afghanistan even after my retirement. Before that, I didn't deal with Afghanistan directly, but I had a number of friends in the Afghan Republic. And I must confess to you that I was getting more and more disenchanted with the way the Republic's leaders, principally the two presidents, were leading Afghanistan. I was also getting very disappointed with the manner in which the American policy was being implemented in Afghanistan. Each country, Gaurav, has to grow organically. You can't impose systems from outside. Systems develop according to the environment and the cultural traditions, the political ethos of a country. The Americans and NATO and the West thought that they could bring in justice from, say, Italy, police from Germany, the army they could fashion, the Americans could do it, drug eradication could be done by the British. Now, that's not the way countries develop. So by about 2016, I was reaching the conclusion that the leadership of Afghanistan, principally the first President Karzai,
Hamid Karzai,
and later President Ashraf Ghani, were not showing the perspicacity, and I hate to say this because I know them well. I have in many ways admiration for them, but they were not showing the kind of leadership that was required to build to Afghanistan into a modern nation state.
okay. The current leadership, the Taliban, can we trust them? You've known Taliban commanders, you've interacted with Taliban commanders. Our impression of the Taliban is when IC-814 was hijacked, was on the tarmac in Kandahar, but we were only looking at images. You were interacting with them. You secured the release of our people. So our impression is that these are guys who are very close to Pakistan, and they'll stab us in the back.
Gaurav, international relations always and interstate relations proceed on the basis of interests. They don't proceed on the basis of trust. There are moments in time when interests coincide, and because they coincide, an entity and a state or two states work together. Let's take the Second World War. I think it's a prime example. You had the Soviets and the
Western Bloc coming
Western Bloc were together against Nazi Germany. What happened almost immediately after the Second World War was won by the Soviets and the Americans and the British. They fell apart and the Cold War ensued. So they were together when the interests coincided, and they went away when the interests diverged. And so with I'll just add one sentence. With the Taliban, there was a period when our interests were not coinciding, they were diverging. And we were close to the Northern Alliance. We were then close to the Afghan Republic. We were helping the Afghan Republic in every which way we could. At that stage too, and this is significant, and this is something which led me to begin writing from February of 2017, that we should start talking to the Taliban. Because all through the period that I dealt with Afghanistan, we got stray messages from the Afghan Taliban relayed through different quarters that basically emphasizing that India should never consider them as Pakistani puppets.
Are they?
Well, they've demonstrated they are not. And that is the point they were making. And then I think beginning from about 2015, Taliban leadership in Doha, those who were in track 2 circuits, etc., whenever they met Indians in the strategic community, always sought them out and tried to convey through them messages to Delhi that, look, again emphasizing the same thing, that they were independent, that there was a reason why they were dependent on the Pakistanis, but that India should never think that this dependence would continue or that they were hostile to us.
And if we were to go back to history, and you've written about this, when Pakistan was created, the only country in the world to oppose the creation of Pakistan was Afghanistan.
Indeed. And there was a reason for it. And that reason is still alive today too. The reason is that the British literally forced the Durand Line, which the Pakistanis now say is the international border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, in which the Afghan successive governments, all governments who've been in Kabul since 1947 and earlier, have never accepted that as the border. So in 1947, prior to the departure of the British, the Afghans told the British that, look, this agreement for the Durand Line was between the government of Afghanistan and between Amir Abdul Rahman Khan, who was then the ruler of Afghanistan, and it was done in 1893, and British India. And since the British were leaving, this agreement fell. And therefore, Afghanistan and it should be restored to what were its original boundaries, which were really along the Indus. You see, the Pathan, and this is interesting, the Pathan or the Pashtun has always thought that the land between the two rivers, which is the Indus and the Amu Darya or the Oxus, is actually
Afghanistan.
their land. No, their land.
Their land. Yeah.
Now, this is not agreed to by the other ethnicities in Afghanistan. It's not accepted by the Tajiks. It's not accepted by the Hazaras or the Uzbeks. But this is instilled in the Pakistan, in the Pashtun mind, including the Pashtuns. If I dare say, if you scratch them deep enough, the Pashtuns of Pakistan.
Yeah.
One last point. There is a contradiction between people who are on opposite banks of the Indus, which is once you cross the Indus towards Afghanistan, then the people become different, customs become different, ways of life become different. And even though the Pakistan state may have co-opted these people, in the Pashtun mind, as indeed, if I may say, in the Baluch mind and the Sindhi mind, Pakistan at the end of the day is considered as a Punjabi-dominated country.
Which it is.
Which it is.
Their army, the bureaucracy, the intelligence agencies.
Absolutely, absolutely. So these contradictions are there, and but it's very interesting that while later, of course, the Afghans accepted Pakistan, but then at one stage when Dawood Khan was prime minister, later he replaced, he ousted King Zahir Shah, his cousin, in a coup in 1973, but he was prime minister between 1953 and 1963. He started a movement for Pashtunistan, which riled the Pakistanis no end.
That is something that we should actually be looking at. When I would think India and Afghanistan, the people of India and Afghanistan, apart from the civilizational ties that we've had, should be very, very thick, and that should give a nightmare to Pakistan at all times, something that's happening right now.
You see, the Pakistanis have been worried, I think unnecessarily so, that they'll get caught in a pincer between India and Afghanistan. That their eastern frontiers, which are with India, and their western frontiers with Afghanistan, will both if there's can both become live and cause enormous problems, that they'll then get caught in this two-front situation. And that is why it has been the historical endeavor of all governments in Pakistan to try to control Kabul, whoever is in Kabul's foreign policy, especially its India policy. And all governments in Kabul have refused. If you notice, only recently, I think 2 days ago, Mullah Yaqub, who is the son of Mullah Omar and now the defense minister, he said, we are independent. We'll have ties with India, we'll have ties with Pakistan, but we are not going to be, so the indication was that we are not going to be controlled by anyone.
So what do you make of General Faiz Hamid, then DG ISI, when Taliban took over Kabul? He air dashed to the Serena Hotel in Kabul and was having chai and saying, you know, all will be well, indicating that he will be the viceroy or Pakistan will once again control Afghanistan. And apparently, I think recently Khwaja Asif or somebody in Pakistan said they gave bulletproof cars to the leadership in Afghanistan, saying now you require all the protection because now you are running the government, to Taliban.
You know what Faiz Hamid did in 2021? Reminded me of what Mia Nawaz Sharif had done in 1992. In 1992, Najibullah failed. And the Mujahideen groups who were then in Peshawar, their government was to be formed. And who went there? Nawaz Sharif, who was then the Prime Minister. He had no business to go there. And once, I can share with you, I won't name him, I asked a former DG of the ISI on the margins of a Track 2 event, I said, if आपने मियाँ साहब को रोका नहीं, क्यों जाने दिया? इसका क्या असर क्या पड़ा होगा अफगानों पे? ठीक है आपने उनकी मदद की, लेकिन अब उनका मुल्क आजाद, उनके लिए आजाद हो गया था, उनकी हुकूमत बन रही थी, आपकी मौजूदगी वहां क्या कर रही थी? कि लग रहा था कि जैसे मुल्ला कि मियाँ साहब उनको एक किस्म से एक राय दे रहे हैं कि किस तरह बनाए, कैसे आगे बढ़े।
कि वो उनका वैसल स्टेट है कि
हाँ कि
उनका
आप,
आधिपत्य
हाँ
है
कि
वहाँ
आप
पर।
बिल्कुल। तो फैज हमीद की भी गलती थी,
हाँ
and the swagger with which Faiz Hamid was behaving, and that riles the Afghan the most, especially the Pashtun. He is very independent-minded. He says, "I will accept everything, but I'll not accept that I'm subservient to anyone." So uh, that happened. So Faiz Hamid made this cardinal error, and now does Khwaja Asif say? कि ये एहसान फरामोश
ये
है।
एहसान फरामोश हैं।
No, what ehsan? If you ask the Afghan, or you ask the Taliban, they say the Pakistanis didn't help us out of the goodness of their heart. They were gaining from us
Financially also.
financially. You know, I'll share this with you. When I went to Kabul as ambassador in 2002, I thought that there'll be great goodwill for Pakistan because they had given refuge to millions of Afghans at the time of their crisis when they went across.
And for decades.
And for decades. And to my great surprise, I found that almost all of them had very harsh words to say about Pakistan. So I asked a group of young people who had come to me to the mission, and I'll share another story with you, which perhaps very few people know. So I asked these people, I said, look, you studied there, etc. So you should be happy with you. I'm sure you have friends in
Muslim
Pakistan,
brothers
etc.
and blah.
No, I don't think it was Islam. I said so much. I said, look, you were there, you were in school with these people, etc. And you know, all of them said, Ki Safir Saab, because that's what they say, Safir Saab, you don't know how we were treated.
Yeah.
We will never forget how badly we were treated. And on cricket,
Yeah.
and I think this is something which your viewers might find interesting. One day I was in office and my staff told me that the president of the Afghan Cricket Association wants to see you. So I got baffled. I said, Afghan Cricket Association, football, yes, but cricket? So I said, so the gentleman came in and he sat down. And my first question to him was that since when have you people started playing cricket? So he said, Safir Saab, our boys studied in Pakistan, etc. So they took to cricket and now cricket is a popular game. So I said, what can I do for you? So he said, can you get us some kits? Can you get us, matting and such things? So I said, do you have a ground? So he said, we'll make a ground, but we want to start cricket. So I wrote to Delhi that, can you send, and Delhi, with great alacrity, I was sent a lot of cricket playing with stuff, pads, just normal equipment. And I sent it to them and that began. So it was interesting that they didn't think of going to Pakistan to ask their help. They came to us.
I want to then understand from you, Pakistan is bleeding within. I believe there have been deaths very recently in Balochistan, hundreds of deaths in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Afghanistan is giving them grief. They don't have good relations with Iran. And, Operation Sindoor is still on. So what is Asim Munir gloating about? And, is this riding a tiger that he will end up in the belly of that tiger? Or does he think that America and China will bail him out?
The latter. I think I think one should always be realistic. Because one must always especially be realistic about states that are inimical to us. Pakistan, if you look at it, is a large country. It has 240 million people. It has nuclear weapons. And as I often say, none of the great powers want a nuclear Somalia.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare for them. The army is in their thinking, Western thinking, and deeply entrenched Western thinking going back to the 1950s, the army is the only stable institution in Pakistan.
And isn't that true?
And it's true. It's true. So the army chief is always been made much of. And Asim Munir is the current army chief who's appointed, I dare say, he's appointed himself as field marshal. I mean, if I were he, I would be deeply embarrassed becoming field marshal. Why do I say this? Because the operations as they were not ground operations.
Yeah.
He was the army chief. Whatever operations took place were aerial operations.
And they got hammered there. लेकिन अफगानिस्तान के साथ मित्रता बहुत अच्छी बात है, मतलब सिविलाइजेशनली क्यों?
देखिए, सिविलाइजेशनल तो अपनी जगह है, ठीक, मैं उसमें दो राय नहीं है, लेकिन गौरव, जो असल है वो सामरिक है।
सामरिक है।
हमारे लिए इस वक्त जबकि अमेरिकनों ने एक रवैया अपनाया हुआ है हमारे पश्चिम पड़ोस के लिए, उस वक्त हमारे लिए अपने पैर मजबूती से जमाना काबुल में आवश्यक है। और मुझे बहुत ही खुशी है कि हमने अपना दूतावास फिर से एक बार खोला है और जो तालिबान का नेतृत्व है, उनका शीर्ष नेतृत्व, वो साफ कह रहा है पाकिस्तान से और दुनिया से कि हम भारत से आगे अपने रिश्ते बढ़ाएंगे। यह भारत के, ये हमारे लाभ में है और इसको कोई रोकेगा।
अच्छा, फिर जो लोग ये कहते हैं कि देखो वो महिलाओं को किस तरह ट्रीट करते हैं, आप अपनी मॉरल स्टैंडिंग खो रहे हैं, वो भी तो एक महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा है।
जो महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा है, मुझे नहीं अच्छा लगता जिस तरह वो अपनी महिलाओं को करते हैं। कौन उसको, किसको अच्छा लगे? लेकिन मैं ये भी जानता हूं कि दुनिया के बहुत देश हैं जिनमें महिलाओं के साथ ऐसा व्यवहार नहीं होता जिसको आप और हम उचित समझ सकते हैं, या जो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मापदंड हैं मानव अधिकार के, उस पर खड़े उतरते हैं। लेकिन वो देश धनवान है, तो उन देशों के जो रीति रिवाज हैं या उन देशों की जो नीतियां हैं,
दुनिया चुप्पी साध लेती है।
दुनिया चुप्पी साध देती है, अलग दूसरी तरफ देखने लगती है और इन पर नहीं।
अच्छा,
तो ये नहीं मैं कह रहा हूं कि ये वाजिब है,
हाँ।
लेकिन और इसकी भी हमें खंडन करना चाहिए। हमें कहना चाहिए, जब भी उचित हो तो हमें कहना चाहिए कि भाई आप सोच लें, लेकिन दुनिया कहाँ से कहाँ जा रही है, आप सोच लें, आप जिस तरह करना चाहते हैं, ये आपका देश है। लेकिन फिर सामरिक हित होते हैं।
सही। हमारे सामरिक, टू प्रोटेक्ट आवर स्ट्रेटेजिक इंटरेस्ट्स, our embassy in Kabul was targeted. Our consulates have been targeted. In fact, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was being sworn in Delhi 2014, our consulate had just been targeted. And
in Herat.
Hamid Karzai, then president of Afghanistan, he'd come to India. I interviewed him, and he said Lashkar-e-Taiba is responsible for these attacks. Lashkar-e-Taiba may try to target our interests once again in Afghanistan.
I think we'll have to be very, very careful. We'll have to provide full security. I think the Taliban also will help in this, but that we need to take whatever steps we need to augment our security and to ensure that the people who are there, our officials who are there, diplomats who are there, are provided all the security that they require. But that can't inhibit us, because there is very much at stake economically. Also, the Hindu Kush is very rich in natural resources, and we can't allow not to have ourselves, not to have a stake in those resources.
Very interesting. Sir, I also want to understand from you, so your thing is that we should encourage mining that's happening there. They want us to do mining in that area. They want us to help with education, healthcare, military assistance is what they seek. What would you say if there was a request to have some kind of deployment in Afghanistan, a couple of squadrons in Afghanistan or a training division in Afghanistan, at an appropriate time, or some kind of a coalition force to stabilize Afghanistan should they need it?
Look, for the time being, I favor that we follow the traditional approach, which is that if the Afghan Defense Forces want training in India for some of their officers, then we should be willing to do that after proper scrutinies, after proper checks. Similarly, I believe that we must be far more open on visas, with scrutinies, medical visas, education visas, etc. But naturally, keeping in mind our security concerns. So it's a step-by-step process, and we should not take any action in a hurry. This is a long process. It's a long game. It's not a short game. We are in for the long haul, but we've got to prepare the ground to protect our interests. And I think that preparation, I'm happy, is now taking place, and that we are not showing any inhibitions. And I'm very happy about this.
And I will let that be the last word on this part of the Chakraview podcast. We've had historic civilizational ties with Afghanistan. They say Gandhari came from what is modern day Kandahar. They talk about relationship that goes back even earlier. But now it's of strategic importance that we build on this relationship and remain here for the long haul. Sir, for joining me here on the Chakraview podcast, many thanks.
Pleasure, Gaurav.